Hey fellow backyard boyers, Nick here. So here's the 100-pound Turkish style inspired bow. I'm starting off with a piece of 1-inch Schedule 40 PVC pipe. This is black furniture grade pipe. I'm using this because of the added UV resistance and impact resistance. The dimensions we're making this bow are pretty close to the upper limits of what PVC does well at, and so this is kind of pushing it for normal plumbing pipe. You can do it, especially if the pipe is flexible, and as long as everything's balanced and is taken care of, it will work well. But these heavyweight bows, you do need to be a little more gentle in how you store them and care for them. I've cut this pipe down to 47 inches overall. I've marked the center at 23.5 inches. Then I've marked 2 inches out from center on either side, and then 2 inches out from those, so 4 inches out from center. And then on my limbs, I've got some marks. From the end, I have a mark that's 3 inches, and then one that's 6 inches from the end. Then a mark that's 6 inches from this one, and a mark that's 6 inches from this one. So I have 2 limb marks that are 6 inches. I've got the handle section, which is 8 inches in total, and then the end has a 6-inch section that's split into 2. So now I'm going to use my heat gun to heat up this pipe until it's soft enough to where I can press this down and the walls will touch. Just with finger pressure. Should be able to do this all the way down the length. And then I'm going to use my flattening jig. And then I'm going to use my flattening jig to set the taper. I've set this to 1.25 inches, which is almost the full diameter of the 1-inch pipe. So that's going to set our center, and then we're going to press till the ends are closed. And the center right there, and so sometimes if these aren't setting, there may be a spot somewhere that's not quite warm enough. You can heat the side of the jig while the bow is clamped in there. Just lightly. If it doesn't go though, don't heat it too much or the sides could split. I'm just going to let this cool down, then we'll flip it over and do the other side. Alright, now that it feels cool, take this off. Okay, so now I'm just going to flex the limb. So you can take a look at this. You can see there's a little bit of a bend to it. I'm going to straighten this up really quick and then flatten the other side. Alright, there it is. So it looks good. I'm going to heat this side up and flatten that out. Well, that's pretty good. Just a little bit of adjustment here. That looks good. You can see that on this top part, it's more rounded, and on this bottom side, it's more flat. So this will be nice because this will simulate the look of a strip of horn on the belly side, plus the bone splices in a traditional handle. So now that the limb is straight, it's time to shape the handle. So here's the center of the pipe. I'm going to be heating between these two handle marks. So this 4-inch section is going to get heated up, and roughly an inch beyond that. You want to come right up to each edge. So a little bit more than this is going to get heated, but it's mainly this section that's going to get shaped. So now I'm going to press this flat against my board, and then right here at the 4-inch section, it's going to be pressed perpendicular to the rest of the bow. So now I'm going to line up down both limbs to make sure that this portion is straight. As you can see, my fingers have left some marks. So I'm going to heat this up again just to remove the finger marks. Since this is going to be a heavyweight bow, I'm going to keep the handle thick. It's not going to be very narrow on this one, but it needs more body. It's got a lot going on. So now that the handle is done, I'm going to let that cool, and then we're going to start working on the limbs. So now I'm going to start working on the tips. So this is going to be a compound tip. This portion here is going to be folded backwards to make the very end kind of like a sia, but unlike a sia, this is just going to be one piece, part of the bow. It's not added on. And then the second portion is going to get heated up and puffed out slightly. So this part's going to be done first. Then we'll work on this. And then we'll work on the rest of the limb. There we go. So you can see this thickened area here is allowing us to get more of an angle. You don't need a very hard... Okay, so you can see that this thickened area that we made allows us to get more of an angle. Otherwise, this front edge might collapse. You don't want to put too much of a bend here. Okay. Now, these tips may not look historical, but these are the strongest tips I know of so far for PVC bows, and this bow is going to need them. That looks good. Okay. Yes. Now I'm going to heat this portion here. I've already done some of this. Now we're going to heat this up again and drive as much of this forward. That will make this stand out a little bit more, and we'll be able to flex it forward. There'll be more material in here to take tension, and we'll smooth this out to further the illusion of horn being inserted up to about here along the belly side. So now that that's heated, place this flat, bring this up, and then press with my hands to flatten it out on the belly side, and press in this first part of this compound recurve. Very cool tips. So that's the first portion. Don't want to make these creases too hard. That looks good. Make sure it lines up with the rest of the bow. It's looking good so far. So now this section here is the primary reflex. So I'm going to heat this portion up, and it is going to curve upward like this. So it's heating up over here and it's starting to thicken. You don't want it too thick here. We still need this to flex further out. We don't want it all to flex in the handle. We'll add our reflex here. We want to make sure that this whole 6-inch section gets some reflex to it. So that the string will definitely rest here. This will serve almost as an integral string bridge, and then should come right off of the limbs with the rest of the curve follow up here. So just a little more reflex right in here. All right, so for ease of lining everything up, I'm going to go ahead and do this on the other limb, and then we'll do the deflex at the same time, so it'll be a little bit easier to get everything balanced. And in case you want to, you can pause the video and hold your bow up to mine to get an idea of the angle of this tip. You can see that the tip sits about 4 inches in front of the beginning of the curve. So it's got about 4 inches of reflex. Right, so here's the whole bow and frame. So I've got both tips done. Now you have 2 options at this point. If you want a bow that is slightly faster, slightly heavier, but requires some balancing and will be a little finicky, at least at first, then you can just go ahead, make sure everything is straight, and then string the bow up. Just going to have to train the limbs because one side will pull a lot harder than the other. You have to pull on the other side. It's not a very complicated process. It's pretty intuitive. For this bow, since it's so heavy, I'm going to add some deflex. Not a whole lot, just to bring these tips back slightly. You don't want to see any big divots when you're looking down the bow like this. The light should be nice and smooth. These are okay, but if it's anything deep, it could cause a collapse. So this curve is going to cause a lot of the bend to concentrate around here. It'll force these tips to come toward each other as opposed toward the archer. It's a really nice design. So now I'm going to cut the nocks. I'm using a carbide file about 3/4 of an inch away from the end. Now that the nocks are cut on both sides, let's string the bow up, see how it does. Alright, so now we're going to string this up for the first time. I have tied a paracord string. I made it about 8 inches shorter than the knock to knock length. Let's see how it goes. And that is not going to work. Let's try this way. I believe. Okay. There we go. And that is looking good. So I can't tell right now which side's bending more. I think it might be this limb. A little bit. Man, paracord creaks. Oh. Okay. I think this bow might be slightly beyond my normal capacity. I am going to have to practice for the shooting video. Okay. Let's see. 6, 7, 8. Okay. All right, let's go. What's it at?
I think you're like 110, almost.
Okay, 110.
You're at 100 right there.
Okay, cool. That was wonderful. Nice. So here it is. Once this bow's finished up, I'll let you guys know, and then when the video is finished and everything's done, we'll post it up here. Thank you to everybody who's been supporting the channel through Patreon, through purchasing my books, and my shirts and other merchandise on Teespring. So there's links to all of that in the description below. I'll see you guys next time. Good gravy, this thing is amazing.